Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Sonic the Hedgehog here, and I am back for yet again for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos once again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Super Metroid for the Super Nintendo / Super Famicom for those of you who lived in Japan. So last time we did manage to able to start the game off as in the forms of we did somehow explore a little bit in Sirius Station, despite the fact that it's now been exploded into pieces thanks to the forms of that self-destruct sequence. And on top of that, after we stumbled across ourselves our familiar baby Metroid ever since in Metroid 2, The Return of Samus, then we do found out about the fact that the baby Metroid has been kidnapped or captured by Ridley himself, the returning villain from the likes of the original Metroid. And also we did manage to able to explore the familiar locations, like for instance we did explore Brimstone for a bit, and on top of that we did somehow explore through the new area in the game, which appears to be Criteria. And speaking of which though, today for this episode is the fact that we're going to be continuing exploring through the planet's abyss, and by able to actually exploring new areas, or in some cases some familiar locations, as we've already stumbled across into ever since in, well, the original Metroid. So in some cases though, here we are returning back onto North Fair from the likes of in Super Metroid, except this time this is on the Super Nintendo, and thus we do have backgrounds this time, as opposed to the likes of black, void blackness, like, background, as far as I'm aware. So, yeah, that might be saying something, for it's a massive improvement over the likes of the originals, that's for sure. So anyways, there's the save room, so we can able to actually save our game for sake of time. So, yeah, not much else to explain about this. And of course, since that we're now exploring through North Fair, this also means that for certain rooms that are extremely hard, that means about the fact that your health will start to drain a lot. So, yeah, for instance, as you saw, that basically though we somehow accidentally went into one of those rooms earlier, and it turns out about the fact that, yeah, I somehow managed able to lose a lot of health, or in some cases energy, just because we haven't exactly got the familiar suit from the likes of the previous two games yet. But hopefully we will come across into the familiar suit as soon as we're able to actually continue exploring for this game, basically. And from here we get ourselves the second energy tank. So, pretty easy to spot though, at least if you know what you're doing, for the sake of the forms of trying to explore this entire planet's abyss as far as this is concerned. So, and also there might be something else down there. So in some cases, let's go and turn into a morph ball from here. And yeah, in certain portions, for certain locked doors, that sometimes though you have to deal with every single enemies for the sake of each and every single room. So, and then in here, this is where we find ourselves the high jump boots, which allows you to able to, of course, jump high. So in some cases though, that'll be extremely recommendable if you're about to try to go after that particular upgrade, because otherwise, if you're trying to able to reach up there, it will not be possible without it. So, and while you're up there, there's the missile expansion. So, yeah, pretty small as far as, you know, progression itself goes. So yeah, a few things we want to explain for this point today, and that is the fact that today's date is, of course, the, I would say today it is the Friday, the 2nd of December today, in this case in 2022 today. Only 23 days to go now until Christmas is approaching. So because of this though, super excited about this, especially noticeable because, well, relatively speaking though, I think what we decided able to do, oh, I somehow almost pull off the actual wall jump technique from earlier ago. Well, it might be tricky to execute sometimes, but then again though, I will try to able to desperately want to able to practice that particular technique, because as far as I'm aware, that can usually decide able to do a lot of sequence breaking sometimes, especially noticeable if you really want to get every single collectibles in the game, ranging from energy tanks from earlier, or in some cases missile expansions in the earlier points, then obviously that will be the true definition of the best technique you can able to pull off. So that basically summarizes the forms of how the fact that, well, again, I will try to practice that particular technique in a later time, because I don't think we can able to actually discover ourselves one of those rooms in particular that does require you to able to use the wall jump technique. So, anyway, so a few things I want to explain while this is happening though, that recently, for those of you who lived in the UK, happy 11th anniversary of the release of Mario Kart 7 for the Nintendo 3DS. So I can't believe that game has been out for 11 years now, since 2011. Well, it technically already did, from the likes of it yesterday in Japan. So for the UK version, that I can't believe it's been about 11 years now since when that game came out. Although, until in North America though, that they will get the game, well, back in the day that is, that they received the game until 2011 in December the 4th. So, pretty interesting release days as far as close by release days as far as I'm concerned with that stuff. But anyways, let's go ahead and use the super missiles here, so we can able to actually bust out these little green doors. And from here, this is where we find ourselves the spacer beam. And basically, this allows you to able to actually shoot 3 beams at a time. Like, you shoot like 3 beams all in one go or something. Well, mind you, I didn't pay attention to... Oh yeah, there we go. So, yeah, that's the move I was on about earlier. So, yeah, you shoot 3 beams at the same time with all in one shot. So, that'll be pretty recommendable for you, though. Especially if you're about able to have yourselves the actual hard time with certain enemy encounters you can able to actually just to stumble across into. So, yeah, not much else to explain about any of this stuff, though. Despite I just keep getting myself dragged into this particular... worm hungry thingy right there. I'm not exactly sure what those creatures are, because I don't usually remember most of those names for certain enemies in this game, but I do know there's one enemy that is somewhat feels a little bit more easier to say for its you know, enemy names as far as I'm aware. That will be Metroids themselves. So, but I digress. But those are only in the first game and the second game essentially. So, as far as I'm aware. So let's just go in through here. And this is where we're able to stumble across ourselves some layers that we can able to actually go into. Just like the forms of how it does it in Metroid 1. So basically this means is the fact that we can able to actually just to find even more secrets. Assuming if we do need able to dish out as many of those enemies as we could. Well, for certain doors anyway. So if we hit up here, this is where we're able to find ourselves the... Oh god, these little creatures, they like able to try to ambush you sometimes. But relatively speaking though, thanks to that particular spacer beam, they'll just make things a lot more easier for you to able to deal with these guys at once, so... But yeah, that might be summed up as such, and I think there might be a secret in there. Yes, there's a secret in there, but before we get into that though, nah, oh wait, there is another secret right there, which obviously leads us to the save room, so we'll just go and save the game from here, and exponentially we can able to continue things on from here, I suppose. So, anyway, another thing I want to mention about this, especially noticeable about the fact there's a perfect timing that we can now able to actually mention something like this, that, relatively speaking, that have you guys ever seen the second trailer for the Super Mario Bros. Movie so far? Because let me tell you, it is really awesome. Although some people are still criticizing about the forms of Chris Pratt's Mario's voice, because it still looks a bit normal for its voice department for Mario anyway. But regardless of such though, everything else about the new trailer just came out for the Super Mario Bros. Movie, I'm not gonna lie, it's really awesome. Especially noticeable that I'm very appreciative about the fact that we're going with the animated counterpart rather than live action all over again. So that basically summarized about the fact that the live action version sucks. But anyway. So yeah, let's just go through here, just trying to able to grab some more missiles and what have you. But if we go up here, we'll simply use the super missile from that green door. And basically, I think there might be something in there. Like a recharging station, with not only with energy recharge station, but also missile recharge station as well. So this also means about the fact that, well, I think this only includes... you know, regular missiles rather than super missiles at the moment. So, but we will come across into one of those super missile recharge stations eventually. So, Oh god, what the heck is up with these things? All those kind of stuff. And this is where we stumbled across ourselves this weird eye door, where basically in order to deal the damage on him, well, to simply use regular missiles. And that's all you essentially have to do for these types of mini fights as far as I'm aware. Speaking of boss fights though, it looks like there's nothing we can get out. Oh snap, what the heck is this? Oh my gosh, does that look familiar to you? Well yes, Kraid from the original Metroid is back, except now he's actually a lot more gigantic than ever before. Like, no longer he was in smaller sprite, so it's definitely a little bit more of an upgrade compared to the forms of the original game. So, appreciate about that stuff though, Nintendo. I appreciate about the forms of that particular massive improvements. So, yeah, basically in this first phase, all you have to do is just shoot to its mouth, and that's all you have to do for its weak spot. And then assuming if you try to utilize the, you know, not only super missiles, but regular missiles as well, that way it deals the insane amount of damage to Kraid. But the only thing you need to be very careful of though, is of course spikes down below. And if you shoot enough quite a few times on Kraid, well, that was it. It's definitely quite easy as far as I'm concerned with that stuff. And of course we'll get some more health, and of course missiles back. So, yeah, everything else goes all fine and dandy and everything for that particular area like this. And from here, this is where we find ourselves, the Vario Suit. Yes, the Vario Suit does make a return, where basically this allows you to able to actually just to, well, protect yourself from heat damage. So, and this is where we get ourselves the most iconic color scheme of Samus ever since then. So, pretty cool to, able to actually compromise about the fact that, well, it's hard to explain honestly, because I know for a fact that it's been 2 days ago since I've last touched this, but again, I do apologize for the forms of that particular uploading schedules is a bit of a struggle at this point, but don't worry, we will be back on track at this point, especially noticeable since that we're actually getting almost to a point that we've almost getting very close towards the end of 2022 for sure. Oh, and by the way, we actually stumbled across that mini Kraid from earlier ago, and he's just as pathetically easy as far as I did manage to take him down within like a few shots apiece. So, but I digress. So, yeah, one thing I really loved about the forms of that new Super Mario Bros. Movie trailer is the fact that Peach, she's no longer a damsel in distress, so she's actually more likely like, kind of like a spiritual successor to Princess Fiona from the likes of in Shrek Forever After kind of syndrome or something, where basically though she actually acted as a warrior or something like that. Well, then again, we're not going to go into any spoiler territory for the sake of the forms of trying to mention something related to like new stuff or anything else to be more specific, because we'll wait until specifically until next year in 2023. And by the way, there's another energy tank right up there, so just in case we can able to actually pick up some more health. So that way we got ourselves 3 squares, so nicely done for our navigations as far as I'm aware. So yeah, so and also another thing I would like to mention too is that out of nowhere, that with the forms of do you remember how the fact that with My Little Pony World that already recently came out on the forms of mobile devices and stuff like that, made by the same developer as the forms of how it does it on Harmony Quest and Rainbow Runners? It turns out that there's another game is about to be coming out, possibly by the forms of this year or next year, because I can't really tell, because I've for some reason almost trying to be giving up on Generation 5 almost. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not biggest fan of Generation 5, I must be honest here, but I mean, sure it does have some good moments here and there, but it's just about the fact that with all this story and the connections, that just somewhat feels a bit, I don't know, all over the place sometimes. Well, at least the characters look pretty good, but it's just that I'm not really a massive fan of Generation 5, because I'm still into G4, so mainly Friendship is Magic era, so, but that's just me. I might be biased, I guess. But I digress. So, yeah, we can't do anything in there, because obviously that the doors somehow blocked it off. So, but we will, promise you guys, we will be back for certain areas if we managed able to find some nookie cranny and stuff like that when it comes to like obtaining all kinds of items here and there. So this is going to be quite a long adventure this time around, as opposed to the ones in the previous two games. That the two of those games in particular, with Metroid and Metroid 2, they are both really short. But aside from all that stuff, though, this is going to be one of those emphasis about the fact that, well, again, it's hard to explain about this honestly, guys, but either way. Anyways, let's get into the forms of the next topic about the forms of, speaking of My Little Pony actually, with Generation 5 related thing. The new game is about to be released until, I don't know, possibly this year or next year, depending on certain stimulations. And this game is called Main Merge. So I'm not exactly sure what this game is all about. And it turns out that this game is going to be made by not only Hasbro, which seems very obvious, it's made by Hasbro of course, but also Unreal Engine. I'm not exactly sure if it's Unreal Engine 5 or 4 or 3. I have no words to be able to say. But it turns out it's also being made by Gameloft, the same developer or the same publisher as the forms of, well, Magic Princess game from the likes of Generation 4. So, pretty interesting all things considered. And also, for some reason, they somehow include Screen Queen's Land and Queen's Land Government logo was also on there too, which I'm not exactly sure how that's included. And as far as I'm aware, I think it's going to be on the app arcade, if I recall correctly. But either way, though, honestly, I have no words to think about it. Especially because, relatively speaking, though, it's just, well, again, I'm just not really a massive fan of Generation 5 at this point. But either way, though, it's still okay as it goes by, but it's not my cup of tea or anything, so I must be honest here. But again, I'm really biased, I guess, when it comes to like any sort of situations as far as that's been concerned with, so but I digress. So next thing I want to mention is the fact that unfortunately Disney Speedstorm, you know, with that game, with the kart racing game with Disney characters and stuff like that, it was expecting to come on, I would say on the Switch and possibly on other systems as well. That game has been delayed until 2023, which I highly doubt. It could be also the same thing as in Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp, but again, it's so hard to tell at this point, clearly because the war is still going on between both Ukraine and Russia, most likely. And as a result, we just still have no idea when that particular game will be releasing until by that time, so. But again, we still shall say, for the sake of time. So, anywho. And there's also another game that's also been delayed called Korra and the 5 Pirates of Maura. So it's been delayed also in 2023. So I get a strong sense of feeling that 2023 might be a little bit more up there in terms of gaming releases or anything else to be more specific. Which, again, I don't mind about it at all, but relatively speaking, though, it's just about the fact the matter is, though, sometimes we always have to wait for certain stuff as far as I'm aware for that stuff. But the good news about the forms of, specifically, with both Sonic Frontiers and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, as far as I'm aware. Although, let's get this Pokemon Scarlet and Violet situation out of the way, first of all. Recently, they decided able to actually bring out a patch for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So in some cases, though, one of those patches in particular, which, mind you, it did came out since yesterday. So in some cases, though, we got Season 1 of Ranked Battles will kick off, allowing you to enjoy ranked battles through the Battle Stadium. And also, they've managed able to include, please check the in-game notice for more details on, or anything else like that for Season 1. And there's an issue that's been fixed that caused the music to not play correctly during the battles with the, as far as I'm aware, Elite 4 and the top champion on the Victory Road path. And also they fixed a lot of, quite a few bug fixes they have recently made, which, Again, I haven't exactly known any of this to be more specifically though, just because, again, I wasn't really a huge Pokemon fanatic, but again, I might be biased, I guess, when it comes to, like, relatable things I was usually more accustomed to. But, anywho, oh, and speaking of which though, is the fact that I just somehow managed able to notice that there's also the Sunny Star Scouts figurine just somehow came out from the likes of based off of one of those Tonys with the forms of something related to young kids, radio box station kind of thing that tells you certain stories based off from. It kind of feels a bit similar to the amiibo figures, except it's more likely based off from children's projects and stuff like that. Something related to, I don't know, Disney, DreamWorks sometimes, and exponentially, well, anything else to be more specifically. So, and what if I looked at Sunny Star Scout figure from the likes of Tony's, and I was like, whoosh, she looks really bad. It does not look like the forms of how it does it on the regular counterparts of Sunny Star Scouts, so yeah, that's why I was thinking about it anyway, because I know it's trying to replicate the forms of the exact same pose as the forms of how it does it as one is shown on the image, but that's just how it is as far as I'm aware, so. Anyway, so speaking of patches though, is the fact that we also got ourselves some bunty of patches from Sonic Frontiers, which I was very appreciative about this, especially noticeable because not only do we get ourselves some patches, but also DLC content too. And just like the forms of how it does it on, let's just say, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and on top of that, Mario Plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, the majority of the DLC is going to be most likely in 2023, if it's possible or not. But either way though, we shall see until when that time comes. So anyways, let's make a run for it. Because as you can tell, every time you run, basically though, these blocks will start to crumble, so yeah, pretty easy when you get the hang of it. And also the missile expansion right there, so do not miss that. Because yeah, it's, what makes this game super cool as well, that you do now got the run button, so yeah, that's saying something, so. Anyway, so speaking of running, we got ourselves the Speed Booster, which allows you to able to become super duper fast. And you can also do all kinds of crazy shenanigans you can also do with the Speed Booster as well. Which we'll point out whenever we get to the later upgrades we do need to get. But either way, we'll make a run for it because the actual asset is actually rising. So, and you can also go back for it, but obviously we've already collected quite enough of those collectibles in these kinds of rooms already, so let's not worry about that right now. So anyway, so with Sonic Frontiers is actually getting its version 1.10 patch notes, as far as I'm aware. They actually got quite a number of stuff when it comes to that particular patches for the game. If it's on, well, specifically, I think currently right now that the PS4 version was already got patched, as far as I'm aware, because unfortunately for the Switch version and the Xbox versions, that we do need to wait until specifically in a later time. So in some cases though, at the moment, for the PS4 version might be accessible for its patches or something. So anyways, in terms of patches they've got, first off, they fixed the random crashing bugs, so that's a good thing. And they addressed the audio-related issues, and they added in UI improvements, and added gameplay optimizations, and added stability and performance improvements. Okay, that's actually pretty swell. I think this also applies onto Xbox Series X, if I recall, or Series S for that matter, because usually, normally, that it only runs at 30 FPS on Series S. But then now they actually got 60 FPS, so that's actually pretty swell. And finally, other major fixes, or minor fixes, as far as I'm aware. So, yeah, pretty cool to able to actually get Sonic Frontiers. A little bit more of a patch update here and there, just like the forms of how it does it on Sonic Colors Ultimate back in last year. Despite the fact that the actual glitches still exist in Sonic Colors Ultimate due to the forms about the fact that they worked throughout the development of the game during the lockdown and all that stuff, which, yeah, that might be seems a little bit more reasonable, I guess. Oh yeah, speaking of which though, is the fact that in terms of DLC for Sonic Frontiers, we were able to get Update 1, Update 2, and Update 3. So, just like in forms of how it does it on Mario Plus Rapid Sparks of Hope, that basically we have to go through DLC roadmaps. So, for instance, first up on Update number 1, we're able to feature 3 things, which we have, well, between Update 1 and Update 2, both of those updates will come in 3 different features in terms of certain packs. For example, update number 1 will feature the jukebox feature, which allows you to listen to certain music and stuff like that. And number 2 features photo mode, similar to the forms of how it does it on most any other games nowadays, with all that photo mode that you can take your pictures and stuff like that to yourself. Like, for instance, that it does the same thing for the likes of not only some snapshot mode from the likes of in Super Mario Odyssey, but also Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. And on top of that, with the forms of Kingdom Hearts 3 and The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which I'm pretty sure we might do the photo mode in Tears of the Kingdom, but we shall pretty much have to wait and see what happens until that time. And on top of that, with the forms of other, like, I don't know what you would call it, because I know for a fact that it has been a very long while since I actually mentioned something like that. And speaking of such though, here we have the Ice Beam, which is the returning beam weapon from the likes of the previous 2 games. Like, for instance, you can once again able to actually freeze up certain stuff. Oh yeah, something's worth mentioning, that one thing I really loved about this game, compared to the previous 2 games for sure, that thank God, they've now managed able to fix the actual issue with the forms of the stacked up beam system. Which basically, unlike the first 2 games, in order able to get one of your beam upgrades, basically though, you're gonna have to keep on doing a lot of backtracking, and thus you can only take one type of beam with you. And on top of all that stuff though, there's a lot of emphasis on backtracking within the first 2 games in Fury. And on top of all that stuff though, is the fact that your beam weapon will be replaced if you somehow manage able to attain the wrong beam ability. So I'm very glad with this game, alongside with the forms of Metroid Fusion and Zero Mission as well, and on top of that Metroid Dread as well, and also Metroid Other Realm as well, that basically all those beam upgrades will be stacked up, and you usually can able to do a massive amount of customization. So yeah, I do really like that feature, especially noticeable. I'm glad that that was improved. So anyway, and the final thing they were able to include in terms of Update 1 for Sonic Frontiers free DLC as far as I'm aware, that's what appears to be the new challenge modes. Could be ranging something between cyberspace, or open world, or in some cases boss fights, as far as I'm aware. So I'm really expecting that the boss rush might be there. So in some cases though, you can able to refight the exact same bosses again, but this time with the forms of certain challenges and stuff like that, as far as I'm aware. Next we'll move on is update number 2, which features also 3 things, but entirely different stuff they will include, like Sonic's birthday. So my guess is that that particular update, well, update 2 for that matter, we'll expect it to become on June next year, because obviously Sonic's 32nd anniversary should be up. So yeah, Sonic's birthday is on there, and there's also Open Zone Challenge, where you can able to do all kinds of stuff for the sake of like multiple challenges all at once, and also new Coco, and I think that's about it basically. So we haven't got anything else further details onto those updates at this point. And the third and the final update, and perhaps is the most exciting ones out of the lot anyway, not what appears to be playable characters and a new story campaign. So yeah, that's actually pretty awesome. And to make matters even better, that for the first time ever since Sonic 06, or in some cases though, Sonic Boom Rise of Loic, but we're not going to talk about that game, that for the first time ever since then, we can finally play as Tails, Knuckles, and Amy in 3D for the first time since, well, some of the other, like, bad Sonic games in the past, like Sonic 06 and Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric. So, yeah, it's about time that we finally get a chance to play. Maybe potentially Tails, Knuckles, and Amy. I'm not exactly sure about Sage though, but either way though, we shall see until possibly by the end of next year in 2023. But yeah, this is actually got a lot more hype than I ever thought it was. So, pretty excited about this, especially noticeable because, well, since that I pretty much already finished up with the Switch version of the game, so once the free DLC thing decides to come into play, then who knows, I might as well be back in for that game and have some more fun with it, able to experience new story campaign and additional content here and there as well, so that should be pretty exciting. So anyways, let's save our game here, and suffice to say, we'll go ahead and end things off here, so join me next time for more of Let's Play of Super Metroid. That is the fact that we'll continue exploring through several sections for the sake of the forms of Planet Zebes, and exponentially we are still carry on exploring through Brimstone at the moment, so that might be seems reasonable. So I will see you guys until on, well, next Monday. Later, fellas.